Welcome to my channel. Good to see you, everyone. I'm Kev Laramie, award-winning podcaster, and today I'm here to give you some of my tips and tricks and hacks that I've accumulated over the years. Some of them will help you generate professional-looking shows, the images, the audio that will help you make money. Tip number 1. Know your gear. If you have cheap gear, expensive gear, it doesn't matter the level of gear that you have. This applies to all the levels, because if you have very cheap gear, test it, play with it. Maybe you'll find a way to highlight the strength of your cheap gear and hide its weakness. And maybe your audio and your podcast is gonna sound amazing. And that's the trick. Get to know your gear, do some tests, and get to experience your voice in different setups on your cheap gear. And you will find one that fits not only your gear, but your voice. All of them together will make your audio better. Tip number 2. One big thing about making your audio and your podcast better is the echo. So if you look in the studio right now, all the way up here, I do have some sound panels, but make your studio as soundproof as you can. And of course, I'm not talking about investing thousands of dollars into audio sound panel to soundproof your room. There's ways to do it for nothing. Here's how I do it. First of all, it's not only 4 walls, you have a ceiling and you have a floor. Those are the largest surfaces usually, and most of the time the ceiling and the floors are unobstructed flat surfaces, and that's what will give you a lot of audio reflection, echo, reverb, call it whatever you like, but that little tinny noise that makes it not sound professional comes from it. So one of the ways you can help with that audio reflection is make sure you have carpet in the place where you record. And on the ceiling, if you don't have foam panels that you can get for cheap, I actually have a link in the description below that are very cheap audio panels. Just nail a few of them to the ceiling. And if you don't, you probably have old cushions of couches or decorative cushions that you don't use. Nail them to the ceiling also. That will help a lot cutting the noise. Now, also having big pieces of furniture, example, a bookshelf with a lot of books, if you turn them to have the paper facing outward or towards where you are, they will absorb the sound more. Little details that do add up. Corners, like example, over there or over here or the same behind us, that's where you get a lot of sound reflection too. Make sure the corners are unobstructed. If they are behind the camera, put a big duvet cover in the corners or flat in the back. Or even get maybe some soundproof cover sheets that you find in the description below that will give you some great sound absorbency also to give you a crisper audio. Drop the echo, make your audio better. It's not about investing a lot of money. It's about just making sure that you do not have flat reflecting surfaces where you record. Tip number 3. Now this one took me years to figure out. Today I'm giving it to you, and I'm giving it to you for free. Make sure you subscribe, by the way, if you learned something new. If you're enjoying this video, like it and subscribe. We appreciate it. This is the first video in our brand new channel, and you can follow me, by the way, on social media with the username right here. All right, this tip is about recording a podcast with a co-host that is not in the same vicinity as you and doing it at high quality. If it's just a regular audio podcast, not live, a pre-recorded podcast, this is the way to go. This will give you the best possible audio quality. What you do is you actually don't record off of Skype, or you don't record off of these call recorders. That's just terrible. The frequency will not be proper. The sound is compressed before it's sent through, so there's no latency, and by the time you receive it, it does not sound the way it was sent to begin with. Now you're wondering, well, how do you record each other? Well, that's the difference. You don't record both. You only record one. I would record myself, my co-host would record only himself on his setup. So with his recording software or hardware, we'll get to it in a minute, he would record only himself, I would record myself, and yes, we would talk through Skype, through Zoom, or through just a regular phone line also. Because we just need to talk through that pathway for timing purposes. I'm recording myself, on the other side they're recording themselves, and once the recording is over, they send the recording over in an MP3 file format, which won't be compressed or damaged while you send it. There's ways to send it if the file is too big. You can use Dropbox, Google Drive, there's WeTransfer. There's a lot of different ways to send bigger MP3 files. So if it's a longer podcast, I still recommend that recording way for to remote audio. And then in your software, you can use the one like I am here. You can follow them on the link in the description below. You have multi-track. You just put the 2 tracks, you sync them up, and they'll be perfectly synced because the timing of the phone, Zoom, or Skype that you're using. And that's how you record pristine audio for 2 different people in 2 different countries, maybe. By the way, don't use Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi is terrible. If you're going to record someone remotely and you record the audio, make sure you have an Ethernet cable directly from your internet source directly into the laptop that the sound is coming in. That will give you the most stable connection for voice over IP systems. I haven't had a drop call with Skype in 4 years. And that's because I'm wired in. The same for Zoom. Zoom works differently. We'll get to that maybe on another day, but I never had a drop call in years, and that's because I'm wired in straight from my internet source through my laptop that I use to call guests. I'm wired in. Tip number 4, it's about recording also, but it's about recording quality and the audio levels you need to record at. You might like the sound of your voice when it's recorded really high, but it's dangerous. It's hard for post-production. So first of all, this tip is maybe twofold. Is not only record your audio at a low level, maximum minus 12 decibels. You do not want to record higher. On most software, this would be at the beginning of yellow or at the end of green, but never in the red. And that's what you want. You want your noise floor to be low. You want your noise floor, which is the silence of your podcast, to be as silent as possible to highlight your voice. And that is achieved best with good equipment, maybe, yeah, for sure. Good software, good hardware. One of the ways to do so also is to record low. At a maximum minus 12 decibel, I always record between minus 15 and minus 20 decibels, but always at a maximum minus 12 decibel, which gives you headspace to amplify to your liking without creating hisses and pops and S's because you recorded too high. If your sound is already close to 0 dB and you amplify it, you'll have terrible audio, distortion, and all that comes with a recording that is way too hot, as we say in the industry. I'm telling you, you'll thank me later. Record low and amplify in post-production, which means use post-production. We've talked about knowing your gear in tip number 1. This is part of tip number 4 though. Is not only know your gear, know your software, and know that you can make it sound better with your software. That's a great tip. Take care of your audio before you send it out. Even if you record badly with post-production, you can save a lot. So get to know post-production. There's millions of videos on YouTube to tell you how. Tip number 5. The next tip is one that will save your life. I'm telling you, it happened to me countless times over the years, and this one is about redundancy. It's about having more than one way of recording your audio, especially if it's an important interview that you're doing with someone remotely. The famous example, you're having a great internet conversation with someone far from where you are, you're recording the audio in your audio software, you're talking through a third party, whichever, Skype, Zoom, whatever, but you're just recording the audio through an audio recording software. that uses your audio card. But having Zoom or Skype or another voice over IP software running too, using the same audio card, you can crash if your audio card is not good. And then your recording is unrecoverable. It's gone. And to make sure that doesn't happen, record in 2 or more ways. There's a lot of ways to do it. You can have 2 different software, or 1 software, 1 hardware, or hardware 2 different ways. That's ideal for sure, because you don't rely on computers. Here's what I do on a daily basis. I record 2 ways. Now, I always record in a software that you see on screen here, which you can find a link below if you want to know more about the software I use. I record that track that is coming from my USB mixer. But also, the main output, the main analog output of my USB mixer is out and wired into my Zoom recorder. And with this Zoom recorder, I have an analog physical backup of my show. So 99% of the time, I'm actually using the digital recording first, because it's in the software. I already have my audio presets in the software, recording exactly the minus decibels that I want, minus 15, with the equalizer applied already on that recording, which it makes very easy for post-production. Basically a start and stop, and it has my presets that I love for my voice, for my co-host. And it's just a fraction of a second. The audio is there, you export it in 30 seconds after a live show. I have my recording. But sometimes software crashes, and it has happened to me many times when you have great interviews or podcasts that I produce for other great content creators. I want a backup. I do not want to rely on the software. What if it crashes and then I'm there freaking out, not knowing what to do and not having a backup? So now, through my Zoom, I have a physical backup that once I have my software recorder and the files exported and I know it's secure and uploaded, I delete the physical example. But before that, I don't. So I have a physical backup in case something happens, and that is imperative. Now, tip number 6 is a hack, and this one is for everyone who don't have a pop filter. You need a pop filter if you do a lot of voiceovers, or if you're just doing a podcast and you have a lot of P's and T's and S's that you say and that goes on a microphone and create a distortion in your recording. So you need a pop filter. And good pop filter, decent pop filters are about $100. They could be expensive. I have one version in the description below that is this here, which I actually found on sale at my own local audio shop for $6.99. And this is a very cheap version of a pop filter. It's just metal. There's no fabric to stop the P's and the air going through. So it's not really useful. It looks the part, but it's not really that all. But this here is useful. It's actually good. It's moldable, and you have a good clamp that you can fix to any mic stand. So my hack is you get the cheap one, and then you get a nylon sock. Yeah, you get one. And you take your nylon sock, black because it fits, but it could be any color. If you want tan, that's okay, I won't judge you. Then you take it and you wrap it around your pop filter. And the nicer you wrap it, the nicer it looks. And then you got yourself with, see, a good pop filter for a total of $7.99, socks included. And you have a backup one, so you can do whatever you want with it. Now, let's continue with hack number 7, the last tip and trick before we say goodbye for today. Thank you for subscribing before leaving. That's really appreciated. Number 7 is all about the first impression of your listener to your podcast. Now, your fans and family will maybe discover your show through social media, through your Facebook or your Twitter or heck, your Instagram page. But the public will discover your show through the podcast app. We'll talk in the future which one is best, how you should host your podcast, and all these details. And let me know in the comment section below what you want to know, what tips and tricks do you want, or what do you have to add to this video. Let me know in the comment section below, and in this second version of this video, we'll add your tips and tricks. But that first look, that first impression is the image of your podcast. It's the titles of your podcast. The titles of your podcast and your podcast itself, and the description of your show and your different episodes will trigger the SEO, the search engine optimization of different podcast applications. If people search for a soccer show and you're a soccer show, but you don't have the word soccer written anywhere in your soccer show, guess what? It won't show up when people look for soccer show. But if you're, example, a kitchen show and you're called We Are a Kitchen Show, welcome to my kitchen, in my kitchen, I make kitchen shows. Well, SEO kitchen, boom, 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 you trigger it. And the titles are important, but the image also. Before your audio, before even the title, they'll see the image of your podcast. And you think about the title for so long, and you think about what you're gonna do with the edit, and what's your music, and what mic am I gonna use, what am I gonna talk about, the topic, who's gonna be my guest. You need to put the same amount of thought in your image. If your image looks cheap, flat, with no details, no perspective, there's a very high likelihood that people won't take it seriously and won't click. Now, if you have an idea, a theme, a design that goes with it, it doesn't have to be professional, but you can find ways to add depth to it, a contour, you emboss your lettering, you put a stroke here and there, you put some shadows, you put a background that has some 3D depth of perception, and maybe some blurriness here and there to give you some focus, and then you have a 3D or an image that is not as boring. The image is important. It's the first look, it's the first opinion someone will make of your content, especially a podcast. So that image is so important for your podcast to get discovered. In a blink of an eye, your image has to convey what you're going to talk about, has to set the tone, the colors, the mood, and the temperature, if it's hot, warm. If you're doing a hockey show or a winter-related theme show, I imagine and I expect your image is going to be closer to blues, whites, some gray, a bit of black, but reminiscent of winter colors. If you have a show on beaches, I expect beige, hot reds of the sun, maybe some blue to represent the water, but graded in a way that the heat and the warmth shines through the image. Think about your image, think about your title, keep podcasting, keep creating, and you'll find what works for you. Work with your voice, with your recording setup. Be thoughtful, imagine a good image, use your hack, use your cheap pop filter if you have to. Do what you need. Keep on creating, streamline your idea, and keep podcasting. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, maybe you learned one thing or two. Let me know if I forgot something. In the comment section below, is there something you want to know about podcasting? Let me know and I'll answer it, maybe in my next video. Until then, subscribe, like, and follow me at Kev Laramie. But as always, until next time, have a great podcast.